Hi again, all. How are you today? Um, this is my second video today, but something's been occurring to me lately, and it's a bit hard to incorporate since I'm not psychologically trained, although I have following this fallen followed the psychological path to my own recovery about myself concerning all my behaviors, traits, pains, traumas, etc. So, although I'm no psychological expert, nor do I possess all the vocabulary, the ins and outs, the details of everything to do with psychology, I would go so far as to say that I've become an expert on myself and an expert as far as things go on the realities of adoption. And I think after searching as long and hard as I have, I can safely say that I would consider myself an expert in the area of adoption trauma and the effects of adoption uh, on the broader scale of things. So the point of this video is that through these uh, searches, through educating myself as best I can, I've spent a bit of time with projection. Okay, so I have experienced it at times and semi sort of understood it, but not completely. Because it's very disturbing once you wrap your head around it and then you start experiencing it. And I think the reason that a lot of people don't experience the projection or see projection when it's coming at them is that the immediate response when being attacked with someone's projection is defense and to simply look at the self like, no, I'm not that, like you're wrong, like what is your problem, and trying to argue and defend yourself, when in fact projection is actually the person telling you what they're guilty of and not being able to see it in themselves, being repulsed by it, and placing it upon you. Okay, so that is delusional. And these people, you can see, are not fully aware of what they're doing. And that's terrifying. These are part of the things that have caused me breakdowns over the years, because in trying to unwrap that, it becomes very scary. So I'll give you a quick example of one of the most recent projections that was upon me. I was in a group of people, and there was one person in the group who has some very negative behavior, some very negative qualities that are shining through in the group. One of those qualities is being very egocentric and very self-centered to the point whereas that person monopolizes the group time. You have a group of 10, 15, 20 people that are all there to share their experiences with one another and try to work together to maybe, get a better understanding of other perspectives, and to interact their strange behaviors that they struggle with. So this one individual monopolizes the group, um, and then anytime he's invited to, say, give feedback to another group member, he will utilize that time to bring it back into his sphere. So, for example, he would say, you know, uh, when it's time to give feedback to someone, oh, am I allowed to give feedback? Because I don't feel like I'm allowed to. I'm constantly being interrupted and blah, blah, blah. And we'll turn it into a 10-minute diatribe how he feels jilted because sometimes his time is not the priority. Now, I also watched, one hour long group where 35 minutes was spent by him talking about his issues, his problems, his this, without any sort of consideration to anyone else. Then when there's feedback invited, no, I don't think I want any, or this, that, and the other thing. And after a couple weeks of watching this go on, I guesstimated that 50%, and I would say that's being conservative, 50% of the time in these groups was spent about this person, right? 10 or 15 people, one person getting all this. Me personally, I know I'm there to also share and participate, and I take a while to warm up. Um, I don't always feel comfortable sharing my experiences. When I try to give feedback, I try and make it short, complete. But anyways, uh, a certain amount of time went on where it's like, well, I have feelings about this person disregarding everyone else's um, time, right? Because he's monopolizing the group for his own reasons, while not taking any consideration to those other people. Well, in group, at one point, he came forward and directly said to me, I feel like you monopolize the groups, and that when giving feedback, you find a way to steer everything back to you. Whoa. And that was sort of my reaction. And one of the more insightful therapists there said something to the effect of, well, is it something about the way Todd or Brian shares, maybe, that um, you know you like, or you envious? Like, I think he was getting at the fact, like, okay, well, I think he saw very clearly that the projection, but he was not called out on the projection. Okay, so I sometimes wonder if that's like sleepwalking. You're not supposed to let them know that what they're saying is a complete delusion. Now, I wanted to obviously have this revealed, and I knew that this wasn't the situation for me, although I considered it. I absolutely considered it. Am I delusional? Am I monopolizing time? Is this a possibility? I even went so far as to think, okay, well, you can see that this person doesn't know that they're doing this, right? You can see this, and they can't accept it about themselves. And I had to think, is this a possibility for me? And I don't think so. And at the same time, I did ask another fella, and he actually, said, like, good for you for sticking up for yourself or whatever. But it wasn't really sticking up for myself. I simply, when it was my turn to respond, I simply said, well, I'm in absolute shock, because it's as if you were reading my mind, because that's exactly how I feel that you operate in this group. And then the groups kind of got cut short, and it didn't get picked up. But I mean, I thought about it later on, and I thought, what would be the best way to handle that? To accept what he's saying? Like, not accept it internally, but just accept it on the surface and say, oh, well, I didn't realize I was doing that. Um, you know, if I don't realize I'm doing that, how would you recommend that I go about monitoring my time and seeing if it's actually a fair amount of time, or see myself doing this? And on top of everything else, why do you think I would do that? To basically ask the questions of this person who knows it's going on, but doesn't know it's him that's doing it, and then to see if they can come up with a solution and maybe somehow internalize that. I mean, I really think, when it comes to psychological issues. But anyways, I think I mentioned that as well about, that one of the last relationships I was in, where I experienced some serious hardcore projection. And it's terrifying. I dealt with that from my aunt when I was young. She called me a sociopath. I looked it up. I was a very kind, compassionate, caring, empathetic person who carried a lot of pain and, didn't ever want anyone else to cry or feel pain and always was the class clown trying to cheer people up. It's just not in my nature to not take other people's feelings into account because I don't know how to feel about myself. I don't know what's right and wrong because everything that's told to me how I should feel is quite the opposite. Like you should feel good about being adopted. You're so lucky. It's like that doesn't match with my feelings. My feelings is hurt and pain. Like so there's been a lot of cognitive dissonance around feelings, but utilizing projection, seeing it in its full force, its full delusional mental illness, because it is fucking crazy. It allowed me to look back on other incidents whereas someone would say something about me that I know is 100% inaccurate and then put me on the defensive, so I don't see what's really going on here. And I'll give you an example. When I was with my daughter, looking after her at my adoptive parents' house, I had the formula or whatever I put in the microwave or whatnot, and it curdled. All right, so I left it aside and I tried a different one, and that worked okay. However it worked out fine. Well, when my adoptive mother came home and she knew I was watching my daughter, she accused me of putting alcohol in the curdled bottle of milk. Okay? That's pretty fucking sick. And I was on the defensive, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, are you ridiculous? But she seemed to really believe that, and I could tell she wasn't really accepting my answer. I was blown away. I was hurt. I was fucking angry. And then later on, the next day or later that night or something, she put a bottle in the microwave. Same thing happened. It curdled. Then the apology came. Oh, I'm sorry. Like I don't know what it is then with the microwave. It curdled this one too. Oh, okay. Well, at least you know now that I didn't do that. But do you see now, looking back on your life and thinking about things? Do you see? So, psychology is something I feel I need, I require, because there's things happening all the time, and the way we are as I think as natural, empathetic, feeling creatures, we don't pick up on how the other kind are, the ones that project, right? The ones that are unwilling to look at themselves and unwilling to criticize themselves. And please, do not be mistaken. I have been the hardest judge of me because, wow, everything was my fault. I mean, I must be doing something wrong, right? The scapegoat. So yes, I looked at everything. When I was called a sociopath, I looked. I looked hard and deeply at myself. It was very understandable to find out my aunt was a sociopath, right? Cannot empathize with others ever and despises her own self for good reason. Despicable, despicable creature. And sick. I mean, again, when you get right down to it, even that scenario is a sick person to me. But these sick people until they're able to see what they are walking around as full-blown monsters. And it's it's breeding ground time in Western culture for these monsters, right? They're being bred, and they're being bred for a purpose as far as I'm concerned. But there is hope. There is us adoptees, the natural empaths, the ones that will not their connection will not be to their adoptive family. It won't be to their birth family. I mean, there's few that will make that bond or continue with the pretend or continue in denial. But at the same token, I feel that the more of us who eventually are just have to grow to a point where we stand on our own, where we incorporate and develop and manifest our own archetypes within ourselves to look after ourselves, become our own saviors, our own mothers, our own fathers, our own nurturers, providers. And once we can get that under our belts, I think the adoptees will stand up and they will become much more than the average human today. We're not. We may be damaged, but if we can put ourselves back together, we can put ourselves back together better, stronger, healthier, and possibly help these people that have gotten themselves into such a deep state of denial and delusion that the rock bottom will look very similar to a biblical apocalypse. So anyways, there's my thoughts on projection and how it can be utilized to look at things in your life. But again, when someone says something to you, consider it. Is this accurate? Be willing to look at it objectively. Is this me? If you're able to do that, don't defend. Don't defend. Don't get angry. Just look at it and then think on it. Be in your solid self, and then be able to estimate that this person's saying something completely untrue, but why? And the question will eventually be answered. It takes contemplation and thought to come to these understandings, but we're all capable of it. But we have to set aside the rage, the anger, the defense, all those things that come naturally, the insult, all those things. Set them aside if we can. It's hard. We're sensitive people. We've been hurt. We don't want to be hurt anymore. But see that what's coming at you isn't necessarily directed at you. As an adoptee, I sometimes feel like a mirror, right? Because that's what I was. I was trying to mirror the environment until I found my own. And unfortunately, I continued along a path of believing I was a mirror. And I can tell you, as a mirror and the outside person utilizing the mirror, that the average person hates themselves. And when you mirror them, you mirror what they hate, and they'll hate you.